The city of Crestwood didn't sleep so much as it passed out, and Maya Santos was its most reliable witness. Each night, long after the bustle had faded to a dull hum, she would walk the 37 blocks from the City Bean Cafe to her studio apartment, her body a symphony of aches, her mind a ledger of deficits. Before we dive deep into the story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe and share your thoughts below. The city of Crestwood didn't sleep so much as it passed out, and Maya Santos was its most reliable witness. Each night, long after the bustle had faded to a dull hum, she would walk the 37 blocks from the City Bean Cafe to her studio apartment, her body a symphony of aches, her mind a ledger of deficits. Tonight was no different. The air had a bite to it, a premature taste of autumn that seeped through the thin fabric of her jacket. In her pocket, her fingers worried a single crumpled $10 bill. It wasn't just money. It was a promise to her 7-year-old daughter, Chloe. Breakfast tomorrow. The last box of oatmeal was gone, the milk carton in their fridge holding little more than a ghost of its former contents. This $10 was the final barrier between her child and a hungry morning. Her route took her past a 24-hour gas station, a beacon of garish light in the sleeping neighborhood. A necessary detour. The restroom key, attached to a block of wood so heavy it felt like an anchor, was a small price to pay for a moment of relief before the final leg of her journey. That's when she heard it. A sound that was less a cry and more a death rattle, a wet, desperate gasp for air that was swallowed by the vast, indifferent night. Her eyes snapped toward the source. Under the flickering halo of a faulty street lamp, a mountain of a man was slumped against the gleaming chrome of a motorcycle. He was massive, with a silver-streaked beard and arms a canvas of faded tattoos. His leather vest, adorned with patches she couldn't quite read from this distance, strained over his broad chest. One hand was clawing at the center of it, his knuckles white. His face was the color of ashes. "Don't even think about it, lady." The voice came from the doorway of the gas station. Leo, the night clerk, was leaning against the frame, a vape pen glowing in his hand. "That's a Reaper. You see that skull patch? Nothing but trouble. Ambulance chasers of the worst kind. Walk away." Maya's feet felt rooted to the pavement. Trouble. Her life was already a dictionary definition of the word. Rent was 5 days overdue, a final notice from the landlord sitting on her counter like a tombstone. Chloe's pediatrician had called again about the unpaid bill for her last asthma checkup. Her left shoe had a hole that her soul couldn't defeat, letting the cold damp of the concrete kiss her skin with every step. Getting involved was a luxury she couldn't afford, but then the man on the ground made a sound, a small, choked whimper. His eyes, wide with terror, met hers across the 10 feet of oil-stained concrete. They were the clear, startling blue of a winter sky, and in them she didn't see a Reaper. She saw a human being, terrified and alone, a memory, sharp and unbidden, sliced through her fatigue. Her father, clutching his chest in their tiny kitchen, his face wearing that same gray mask. Her 12-year-old self, frozen, watching him fall. The ambulance that arrived too late. The silence that followed was a sound she had carried ever since. "Walk away," logic screamed. "You have Chloe. A man is dying," her heart answered. She looked at Leo, who just shook his head in disgust and retreated back into the bright store. She was alone with her choice. With a resolve that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her own exhausted body, Maya ran. Not away, but toward. She burst into the gas station, her eyes scanning the sparse shelves. There, aspirin, a large bottle of water. She snatched them and slammed them onto the counter. "How much?" Her voice was a stranger's, tight and high. $8.50. Her hand shook as she pulled the $10 bill from her pocket. "Chloe's breakfast." She laid it on the counter. Leo gave her $1.50 in change, his expression a mix of pity and contempt. She didn't care. She was back outside, skidding to her knees on the rough pavement beside the giant. "Sir, can you hear me? I need you to chew these." His eyes fluttered. "Heart, meds, forgot." He wheezed, the words barely audible. Maya fumbled with the child-proof cap, shook out 2 tablets, and placed them on his tongue. "Chew. Come on, you have to chew them." He complied weakly, his jaw working as she held the water bottle to his lips, helping him swallow. "Help is coming," she said, her hand on his leather-clad shoulder. It was rock hard with tension. "Just stay with me. Look at me." His hand, surprisingly gentle, came up and covered hers. His grip was faint, but the intent was firm. "Name," he rasped. "Maya. Maya Santos. Maya." He coughed, a dry, hacking sound. You saved me." "Not yet," she whispered, her own breath catching. "But I'm trying." The glorious wail of sirens cut through the night, growing rapidly closer. Just then, another motorcycle roared into the lot, kicking up gravel. A younger man with a fierce intensity in his eyes and the same skull patch on his vest leaped off before the bike had fully stopped. Grizzly. Oh God, Grizzly. He dropped to his knees opposite Maya, his hands hovering over the older man. Then his eyes found Maya, covered in the man's shadow, her small, cold hand still in his. The shock on his face was absolute. You stopped?" "He needed help," Maya said, the simplicity of the statement hanging in the air. "Most people cross the street," the younger man said, his voice thick with an emotion she couldn't place. The paramedics took over with efficient grace. One of them looked at the aspirin bottle in Maya's hand. "You give him this?" She nodded. "Good call. You bought him the time he needed." They loaded the man, Grizzly, onto a gurney. As they lifted him into the ambulance, he fought the oxygen mask for a second, his blue eyes locking onto Maya's. "Tell them. Grizzly sent you," he breathed before the door slammed shut. The younger man, introduced himself as Jet, pressed a plain black business card into her palm. It was cool and smooth. No name, no title. Just a phone number and a small embossed emblem. A winged hammer. "Call that number tomorrow," Jet said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "He'll want to thank you himself." Then he was gone, the thunder of his bike fading into the city's hum. Maya stood alone, the neon sign of the gas station painting her in garish colors. She looked down at the card in one hand and the $1.50 in change in the other. The weight of what she had done and what she had lost crashed down on her. She had spent her daughter's breakfast, her last shred of security, on a stranger. She walked the rest of the way home in a daze, the clerk's warning echoing in her mind. Nothing but trouble. Had her kindness just doomed them both? When she slipped into her apartment, it was past midnight. The air was still and close. She checked on Chloe, sleeping peacefully in the bed they shared, her breathing a soft, even rhythm. Maya's heart clenched. She placed the black business card on the small, rickety nightstand. It looked alien there, a sleek, dark promise, or a threat in her world of cracked linoleum and second-hand furniture. As she finally lay down, her body screaming for rest, she had no way of knowing that in a sterile hospital room, a man named Grizzly was issuing quiet, firm commands. She had no idea that her name was being spoken with a reverence usually reserved for saints and saviors. All she knew was the hollow ache in her stomach, a premonition of the hunger she would have to explain to her daughter in the morning. She had chosen a stranger's life over her child's meal, and as sleep finally took her, she prayed to a God she wasn't sure she believed in that it had been the right choice. The 4:30 a.m. alarm was a merciless fist yanking Maya from a fitful sleep. For a single blissful second she forgot. Then reality, cold and sharp, settled back into her bones. The $10 was gone. She moved through the morning routine on autopilot, a ghost in her own kitchen. The cabinet was a barren landscape. She found half a banana going brown and a sleeve of saltine crackers. She split the banana, arranged the crackers on a plate, and poured a glass of water. Chloe patted out, her dark hair a wild cloud around her sleepy face. "Morning, Mommy. What's for breakfast?" "Banana splits and crackers, baby," Maya said, forcing a brightness into her voice that she didn't feel. The fancy kind. Chloe, ever trusting, just climbed into her chair and started eating. Maya didn't make a plate for herself. There was no point. She sipped water, her stomach growling in protest, and watched her daughter. The guilt was a physical weight on her chest. Then came the knock. Sharp, insistent. Too early for visitors. Maya opened the door to find Mrs. Gable from downstairs, a woman in her 60s whose face was permanently set in a frown of disapproval. She owned the building and took a grim pleasure in her petty power. "Maya," she said, her voice tight. "I heard about your little stunt last night." Maya's blood ran cold. "What? Don't play dumb." "Leo from the Gas and Go is my nephew. You helped one of those reapers." She spat the word like it was poison. "Do you have any idea what you've done? What kind of element you're attracting? I have other tenants to think about. He was having a heart attack. Maya said, her voice steady but quiet. I couldn't just leave him. You could have and you should have. Mrs. Gable's eyes narrowed. Those men are criminals, Maya. Drugs, violence. I won't have it near my building. You bring that kind of trouble here, and you're out. You and your daughter. Understood? The threat landed like a blow. Maya just nodded, unable to speak. Mrs. Gable turned on her heel and stalked away, leaving Maya trembling in the doorway. At her first job, folding shirts at Fresh Clean Laundry, her co-worker Brenda took one look at her and pulled her into the break room. Honey, you look like you've seen a ghost. What's going on? The story tumbled out of Maya. The gas station, the heart attack, the $10, Mrs. Gable's threat. Brenda listened, her kind eyes widening. You helped the Reaper? Girl, you've got more guts than sense. But then she squeezed Maya's hand. But you did the right thing. Don't let that old bat make you think otherwise. During her break, Maya pulled out the black card. It felt heavy in her hand. Trouble, Mrs. Gable had said. You did the right thing, Brenda said. Torn, she typed a quick text to the number. This is Maya Santos. Jet gave me this number. Her phone rang instantly. An unknown number. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She let it go to voicemail. A minute later, she listened to the message. It was Jet. Maya, Grizzly wants to see you. Can you meet at the Iron Skillet Diner on Grand Avenue at 3 p.m.? It's important, please. Brenda, peeking over her shoulder, nodded vigorously. Go, what's the worst that could happen? Free pie. The rest of the day was a blur of anxiety. As she left the laundromat, she saw them. 2 men on motorcycles parked across the street. They weren't looking at her, but their presence was a silent, intimidating statement. When one of them glanced up and gave her a slow, respectful nod, a shiver went down her spine. They were watching her. The Iron Skillet was a classic American diner, all chrome and red vinyl. As her bus turned the corner, Maya's breath caught in her throat. The street outside was lined with motorcycles. Dozens of them. Men and women in leather vests stood quietly on the sidewalk. They weren't causing a scene, but their collective presence was overwhelming. Every instinct told her to stay on the bus, to ride away and never look back. But something, curiosity, a flicker of defiance, the memory of Grizzly's blue eyes, made her stand and step off onto the curb. A path cleared for her as she walked toward the diner. The bikers weren't threatening. They were solemn. As she passed, each one gave her a small nod, a gesture of respect that was both confusing and profound. Jet met her at the door. You came. He's in the back. The diner was silent. Every booth was filled with members of the Reaper's MC, and every eye was on her. They stood as she walked through, a silent, rolling wave of honor. It was one of the most unnerving and powerful moments of her life. Grizzly sat in a corner booth, looking pale but strong. He stood slowly as she approached. Maya Santos, he said, his voice a low rumble. Please, sit. She slid into the booth across from him. How are you feeling? She asked. Alive. Thanks to you. The doc said another 5 minutes and I'd be planting daisies. He studied her, his gaze intense but not unkind. Jet told me you wouldn't take any money. Said you have a daughter. That you used your last $10. Maya looked down at her hands, folded on the table. It wasn't about money, I know. That's why I asked you here. He slid a worn photograph across the table. A younger Grizzly, his arm around a beautiful woman with a bright smile. Between them was a little girl, no older than Chloe, with her father's blue eyes. That's my daughter, Lily, he said, his voice softening. She had leukemia. We fought it for 2 years. We couldn't keep up with the medical bills. By the time we got the help we needed, it was too late. She was 7. Maya's throat tightened. I'm so sorry, Grizzly. His jaw worked. After she died, I made a promise. I started a foundation in her name, Lily's Promise. We find people who show real, selfless kindness, especially when they have nothing to give, and we help them. It's what she would have wanted. He looked her dead in the eye. Tomorrow morning, something's going to happen. Don't be scared. Just let it happen. What do you mean? Maya asked, her heart starting to race again. He just gave a small, tired smile. You'll see. He left cash on the table, stood, and walked out, Jet falling in beside him. Maya sat alone in the silent diner, surrounded by a sea of leather and tattoos, more lost than ever. An older biker with a grizzled beard leaned over as he passed. You did good, kid, he muttered. Real good. She had no idea what he meant, but the pit in her stomach told her that her quiet, controlled life was about to be blown wide open. Maya woke to a sound like the world cracking open, a deep rumbling thunder that vibrated through the floorboards and rattled the windows in their frames. Engines. Her heart leaped into her throat. She rushed to the window and pulled back the thin curtain. The street was a river of steel and leather. Motorcycles, more than she could count, were parked in perfect, intimidating rows. Men and women in Reaper's Cut stood beside their bikes, their arms crossed, a silent, formidable army. "Mommy?" Chloe's small, scared voice came from behind her. "Why are there so many motorcycles?" Before Maya could answer, the shouting started. She threw on a hoodie and rushed outside, pulling a wide-eyed Chloe behind her. The neighbors were pouring out of their apartments, but their faces weren't curious. They were terrified. Old Mr. Henderson from 2B was on his phone, his voice shrill. "Police! There's a gang takeover on Sycamore Lane!" Mrs. Gable stormed out, her face purple with rage. She pointed a trembling finger at Maya. "You!" "I knew it. I told you. You brought this filth to our doorstep." Other voices joined in, a chorus of fear and anger. "What were you thinking, Maya? Our children live here." "I told you they were nothing but trouble." The crowd pressed in, their faces a blur of accusation. Chloe started to cry, burying her face in Maya's leg. Maya held her close, her own hands shaking, utterly paralyzed. This was her fault. Mrs. Gable had been right. Just as the mob's fear threatened to boil over, Jet stepped forward, raising his hands for calm. "Everyone, please." "Calm down! We're not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here?" Mr. Henderson shouted, Jet's voice cut through the noise, clear and strong. "We're here to help one of your own." He turned and pointed directly at Maya. "This woman saved our president's life 2 nights ago. She saw a man dying and she helped him, even when everyone told her to walk away. She gave her last $10, her daughter's breakfast money, to do it." A stunned silence fell over the crowd. "My name is Jax, and the man she saved, Grizzly, is the founder of Lily's Promise. We're a registered nonprofit. We help families who are struggling. We've helped thousands over the last 15 years. A woman's voice, hesitant, came from the crowd. "Lily's Promise? You paid for my nephew's burn therapy in Oakland." Another voice. "You helped my sister keep her house after her husband died." The energy on the street shifted palpably, the anger dissolving into confusion, then dawning recognition. Mrs. Gable's hand flew to her mouth. "The charity? The one for sick kids? That's you?" Grizzly himself then stepped out of the crowd, moving slowly but with undeniable authority. He looked at the gathered neighbors, his gaze sweeping over their fearful faces. "I get it," he said, his voice carrying easily in the sudden quiet. "You see the jackets, the tattoos, the bikes. You see what you've been told to see. You got scared. That's human." He turned and his eyes settled on Maya, who was still holding a sobbing Chloe. But this woman, she didn't see any of that. She saw a man dying, and she spent her last dollar to give him a chance. She didn't know me. She didn't care. She just saw a person. He looked back at the crowd. "That's the world my Lily believed in. And that's the world we're trying to build." Mr. Henderson, his face flushed with shame, stepped forward. I judged you by your cover," he stammered, his voice thick. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." He extended a hand. Grizzly took it in his own, a firm, forgiving grip. The dam broke. One by one, neighbors came forward, offering apologies and thanks. The fear had been transformed, right there on the cracked pavement of Sycamore Lane. Grizzly then turned to Maya. He handed her a long, white envelope. "You gave me a second chance. Maya, let us give you one." With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a check. She stared at the number, her brain refusing to process it. $25,000, for the rent. "The bills, whatever you need," Grizzly said softly. But there was more. A formal job offer letter. The title read, Community Outreach Coordinator, Lily's Promise. The salary was $55,000 a year. Full benefits, including full medical and dental. Maya's legs gave out. She sank to the ground, the asphalt rough against her knees, and sobbed, the check fluttering from her fingers. Chloe knelt beside her, patting her back. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Happy tears, baby," she choked out. "These are happy tears." Grizzly knelt beside her, wincing slightly. "One more thing." He held up a single car key. "We found your old Honda in the impound lot. It's been fully repaired. Tuned up, detailed. It's around the corner." Maya looked up, her face streaked with tears, utterly bewildered. Why? Why are you doing all this? Grizzly's eyes, those piercing blue eyes, glistened. 15 years ago, my daughter died because we didn't have enough money, because we fell through the cracks. I swore I'd never let that happen to another family if I could help it. You saved my life with your last dollar. You didn't hesitate. You didn't ask for anything. That's who the world needs more of. That's who I need. As the neighbors and bikers alike began unloading furniture, groceries, and toys from a large truck, the street that had been a place of fear minutes before became a block party. Mr. Henderson was carrying a new bookshelf. Mrs. Gable, wiping tears from her eyes, was directing traffic. "Careful with that sofa!" That's for the little girl's room. Maya stood in the center of it all, watching her community come together, and for the first time in years, she felt the heavy iron cloak of despair begin to lift. She felt hope. The transformation of apartment 3B was nothing short of a miracle. The sagging couch was replaced by a sturdy, comfortable one. The wobbly table was swapped for a solid oak dining set. Chloe's mattress on the floor became a real bed with a princess-style canopy. Her squeals of delight the best sound Maya had ever heard. In the middle of the organized chaos, Grizzly sat on the new couch with Maya. "The job," he began, "is simple but hard. We get hundreds of requests for help every month. Single parents, vets, families facing medical crises. I need someone who can look them in the eye and see their heart, not just their problems. Someone who knows what that struggle feels like." "That's you." "I'll do it," Maya said without hesitation. "I want to help." "Good. Your first task." He pulled out a set of blueprints. "We're building a community center. Right here in this neighborhood. We own the vacant lot at the end of the street." Maya's eyes widened as she looked at the plans. A job training center, a food bank, an after-school program, a free medical clinic. "And we're naming it Santos Place," Grizzly said. Maya shook her head vehemently. "No, you can't. That's too much." "You saved my life with your last $10, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "That's the definition of Santos Place." He handed her a soft, black zip-up hoodie. It wasn't a reaper's cut, but it had the Lily's Promise logo embroidered on the chest, a small, blooming lily. "You're one of us now, family." Maya pulled it on. It felt like a suit of armor. "Your first official act," Grizzly said. "Find someone in this building who needs help. Use that instinct." Maya didn't even have to think. "Mr. Kovac in 1A, he's a Vietnam vet. His pension doesn't cover his insulin. I've seen him skip doses to make it last." Grizzly stood up. "Then let's go." The three of them, Maya, Grizzly, and Jet, walked downstairs and knocked on 1A. The door opened to reveal a thin, elderly man with sad eyes. "Mr. Kovac," Maya said gently. "These are my friends. We're here to see if you need any help." An hour later, a stunned Mr. Kovac had a promise that a 3-month supply of his insulin would be delivered by the end of the day, fully covered by Lily's Promise. He held Maya's hand, his own gnarled and trembling, tears streaming down his face. As they walked back into the sunlight, Maya felt a sense of purpose so profound it was almost dizzying. "This is the best job in the world," she whispered. Grizzly smiled. "I know. Because you remember what it's like to be on the other side of that door." The following months were a whirlwind. Maya quit her 2 jobs and threw herself into her new role. She found a young family living in their car and got them into temporary housing. She connected an out-of-work chef with a job training program. Every day she used her own past pain as a compass to guide others to safety. Meanwhile, the vacant lot at the end of Sycamore Lane erupted with activity. Construction crews broke ground on Santos Place. At the ceremony, Maya stood with a golden shovel, surrounded by bikers and neighbors, her picture in the local paper. The article brought some backlash. Anonymous online comments called her a fraud, accused the Reapers of being a criminal organization laundering money. The negativity stung, but it was quickly drowned out by a tidal wave of support. Stories poured in from all over the state. People whose lives had been saved by Lily's Promise. A veteran in Reno, a single mother in Fresno, an entire community in a town ravaged by floods. The narrative flipped. Lily's Promise wasn't a gang. It was a guardian angel. 6 months after the groundbreaking, Santos Place opened its doors. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was a neighborhood festival. Maya and Chloe, holding a giant pair of scissors together, cut the bright red ribbon to the sound of roaring applause. Inside, the building hummed with life. On the first day alone, over 50 people came through its doors, and all 50 left with help, with hope, with a little less weight on their shoulders. Maya had an office now, with her name on the door. Chloe had a new school, new friends, and an inhaler that was always, miraculously, full. The constant gnawing fear that had been Maya's companion for years was gone. It had been replaced by a steady, sure-footed confidence. She was no longer just surviving. She was building. She was healing. She was home. 1 year to the day after that fateful night at the Gas and Go, Santos Place was bursting at the seams for its first anniversary party. Balloons floated toward the high ceilings, and the smell of grilled food and laughter filled the air. The crowd was a beautiful mosaic, bikers in leather, families from the neighborhood, city officials, and the many people Maya and her team had helped, who were now volunteers themselves. Maya stood at a small podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Chloe, beaming with pride, sat in the front row next to Grizzly, who gave Maya a slow, confident nod. She cleared her throat. "A year ago," she began, her voice clear and strong, "I had $10 to my name and a choice to make. Help a stranger or feed my daughter. I was scared. People I respected told me I was making a mistake, that I was asking for trouble." She paused, her eyes finding Grizzly's. "But I learned that kindness is never a mistake, especially when it costs you everything." Especially then. The applause was thunderous. After her speech, a young woman approached her, her eyes red-rimmed. "Mrs. Santos, you helped my dad. He had lung cancer. You got him into that clinical trial in San Diego." Maya searched her memory, and then it came to her. "Carlos, how is he?" "He's in remission," the young woman said, tears finally spilling over. "The doctors said it was a miracle, but it wasn't. It was you. It was this place." She pulled Maya into a tight, grateful hug. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Maya went for a walk. She passed a different gas station and saw a young woman sitting on the curb, her head in her hands, a stroller beside her. "Hey," Maya said, kneeling down. "You okay?" The woman looked up, her face streaked with tears. "I just moved here. My car died. I have no one to call. I don't know what to do." Maya didn't hesitate. She opened her wallet and pulled out $80. "Here, get a tow truck. Get your baby home." The woman stared at the money in disbelief. I can't take this." "Yes, you can," Maya said softly. She handed her a Lily's promise card. "And when you're back on your feet, your only job is to help someone else. Pass it on." As she walked away, Maya felt a profound sense of peace. The cycle was complete. The $10 she had given away had come back to her 1,000-fold, not just in money, but in purpose, in community, in love. She had been the one on the ground, and now she was the one offering a hand up. Her story had started with a single act of desperate courage. It had cost her everything she had, and in return, it had given her a life she never dared to dream of. She looked up at the stars beginning to pepper the twilight sky. Somewhere, she thought, a little girl named Lily was smiling. The promise made in her name was being kept, one rescued life at a time. And Maya Santos, the woman who had spent her last $10, was now the keeper of that flame, ensuring its light would never go out.